So this, I think, is a historic moment in how we think about warfare and law, because the International Criminal Court prosecutor, Karim Khan, has today issued applications for arrest warrants against the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, as well as 3 Hamas commanders, including its leader Yahya Sinwar, for war crimes. In the case of the Israelis, he lists these crimes as the starvation of civilians as a method of warfare, willfully causing great suffering or serious injury, cruel treatment, murder, intentionally directing attacks against civilians, extermination, including deaths caused by starvation. And all these, he says, are crimes against humanity. For the Hamas leaders, the application accused them of extermination as a crime against humanity, murder, taking hostages, rape, and other acts of sexual violence, and torture. Now, I think it is unlikely that the Israeli politicians or the Hamas leaders will actually end up in the dock or be jailed for what they have done. But for the ICC to issue charges of crimes against humanity changes forever how many people will view what has happened in Israel and Gaza. Anyone who is pro-Palestinian and on those marches has defended Hamas or chanted Hamas slogans should fall silent in abject shame. And anyone who has suggested that Netanyahu and his government were doing the right thing when they rained bombs on apartment blocks and refugees should choke on their words. If you think words matter at all, and if you don't, I don't know why you're listening to a speech radio station, then today has been a very important day. I'm joined first by Professor Francis Boyle, the first person to bring a successful genocide order at the International Court of Justice and a long-standing critic of Israel. Very good to see you there. Can I ask, first of all, whether you think this will change anything on the ground?
Oh, I hope so. I hope that the prosecutor brought this to stop a catastrophic genocide at Rafah right now as we speak. According to the latest press reports, 900,000 Palestinians have now fled Rafah. The Israeli military is now operating in there. As you know, South Africa in the International Court of Justice last week talked about extermination camps. If you follow the proceedings in the World Court by South Africa, it's a catastrophic situation. So I would hope these indictments against Netanyahu and Gallant would hopefully force the Israelis to think twice about what they're planning to do on Rafah.
What about the indictments against the Hamas leaders? Because you, I think, were instrumental in persuading the Palestinian Authority to engage with the International Criminal Court originally.
That is correct. After Operation Cast Lead in 2009, I advised Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas to accept the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court for Palestine and all Palestinians. By the way, if you read the statement today by the prosecutor, he has asserted jurisdiction over all Palestinians around the world. That is correct, as well as Israelis. When President Abbas acted, Hamas said, if I remember correctly, it's been a while ago, that they would be prepared to accept prosecution in order to obtain the liberation of Palestine. So President Abbas knew what he was doing. President Abbas is not in the military chain of command here. So I did not believe he faced any risk of prosecution himself.
And Professor, can I ask you about this question of jurisdiction? Because the Foreign Secretary from the UK, Lord Cameron, has said this afternoon that he does not believe the ICC has jurisdiction in this case over either the Palestinians and Hamas or the Israeli government.
Yes, well, finally, Palestine did become an actual party to the Rome Statute for the International Criminal Court. I believe it was 2014. And if you have a look at the webpage today of the Financial Times, you will see that the ICC prosecutor put together a first-rate group of legal advisors on this point, many of whom are from the United Kingdom. Some of your top jurists there backing him up and agreeing with him that the ICC does have jurisdiction here to proceed against the Israeli leaders. But I refer you today to the Financial Times. They have a 13-page memo on there, but they're very distinguished, independent jurists there in Britain.
Well, Professor Boyle, thank you very much for that. I'm going to pick up that very point with Stephen Flynn, the Westminster leader of the SNP, because Stephen, among many other things, I noticed that Karim Khan, the prosecutor in this case, was born in Edinburgh, so he's almost one of yours. But
one of ours.
This is very much one of ours. Thank you. This is very much a British-driven bout of jurisprudence, is it not?
Indeed, and I guess what's been laid out today, Andrew, is a roll call of absolute horror, be that the obscene, disgusting acts of Hamas on October the 7th, or indeed the grotesque response of the Israeli government in the many months that have passed since. You know, in Parliament, we've talked extensively about the need for a ceasefire. We've talked extensively about the need for an end to arms sales and arms licences to Israel. But I also think it's time for the Westminster politicians, David Cameron, Keir Starmer and others, to reflect upon the complicity of their silence for so many months on this horrific situation. What we now need to do is see what the court obviously do in terms of granting these warrants or otherwise. But meantime, we need to see that ceasefire. We need to see the arms sales stopped.
There has been a very, very angry backlash already to this decision, or these applications for warrants. President Biden has called them outrageous. And in Israel, there's been fury at the apparent equality being set by the court between what Hamas did and they say, as a sovereign state defending itself, have done.
Well, of course, I don't think anyone would dispute the horrors that Hamas inflicted upon the Israeli people on October the 7th, and those who do are not of sound mind. The reality is that Israel has responded by stopping people from having access to water, to electricity, to medicine, to food, preventing people from leaving, cajoled them into a small corner of Gaza where they're now bombarding them, shooting them, bombing them. And that has consequences. Now, I personally, as a politician, believe in the rule of law. I believe in international rule of law. And I think we should allow the court to look at this seriously. And should they determine that an arrest warrant should be issued both for the senior Hamas officials but also for Benjamin Netanyahu and others in the Israeli government, then I would expect the UK as a partner in upholding international law to respond positively to that.
And do you think if that happened, that would change the way that other leaders in other countries thought about war going forward?
Yes, absolutely. This notion that you can respond to what was undoubtedly an horrific attack by essentially inflicting collective punishment on a civilian population for months to the point where people are starving to death, that is not how politics should work. That is not how warfare should work. We should strive for better. The UK should strive for better. And I think the remarks of David Cameron and others today show how weak the UK government is when it comes to upholding international law. And, you know, it's not just that. It's also time for people to reflect upon the fact that preventing people having access to food and water amounts to starvation. And, of course, the Labour Party leader once backed that when it came to the actions of Israel.
It's perhaps wrong to kind of tempt you into becoming a commentator. We don't know what's going to happen in Israel as a result of this. It's caused an extraordinary amount of comment and anger in Israel. But I wonder whether you think this is going to change anybody's minds in the UK.
It should. Whether it will or not, I'm not so confident. I mean, it took the best part of 6 or 7 months to get the Labour Party to change their mind on whether there should be a ceasefire or not, and I'm not still entirely sure whether they believe there should be an immediate one under what.
Oh, I think they do now.
Yeah, but whether that includes the collective punishment of the Palestinian people is where I would have some dubiety. So I think it should change minds, but within Israel itself, it should almost be taken out of their control, because the US, the UK, and our allies across Europe and the Western world should be saying no more. There will be a ceasefire. You will not have any more arms until this stops.
Stephen Flynn, leader of the SNP at Westminster, thank you very much indeed for coming in and talking to LBC.